So, hopefully by now you have gone through the process of writing your resume, trying to put it together, and you've submitted something that resembles a resume. I'm going to go through those and I'm going to give you some feedback and give you some tips on how you can improve those things. But what I wanted to talk to you guys about today is sort of the next step in applying for a job. That is the cover letter. Um, there are some things that are sort of old school, so to speak, but they are useful and they are sometimes necessary. And so essentially, what you want to think of with the cover letter is like your first impression to your potential employer. And that first impression should be something that is um, going to get their attention, is going to help them see that you're useful or that you would be useful to their company. And that would ultimately help you, hopefully, to get that job. I don't care if you're applying for a Walmart or if you're applying for a Fortune 500 company, you need to know how to write a cover letter. I know that some of you guys have already started applying for career or you're planning on going into the military, things like that. But I will tell you that you still will have to apply for things. And so this is a skill that can be useful to you and something that you won't necessarily have to just figure out on your own. I had a careers class when I was in middle school. And so they taught eighth graders how to write a cover letter and a resume, which is fine, really helpful. But when I went to go get a job 3 years later, 2 years later, I had no idea what I was doing. And I just sort of pulled out bits and pieces of what I remembered and managed to get a job. And so I want to make sure that I impart to you some information that could help you to get a job and to get a job that you actually want to get. I realize right now your options may be limited, but what it comes down to is that the more that you do in the jobs that you're given, or that you not given, the jobs that you get, um, the better you're going to be in the long run. So I'm going to take you to this website. It just sort of gives some bullet points, and we're just going to skim through it. I'll link this for you in Classroom. But the first thing it talks about is what it is. So cover letters are essentially just what they sound like. They're a letter that goes on top of your resume. If you had a paper resume, we don't really do hard copy resumes anymore, so it's more so like an email. But it is really to explain why you're the right person for the job. Okay. And so it talks about introduction, body, paragraphs, and conclusion. It's a basic letter. If you've never written a letter before, we're going to work on that. Okay. Um, so I'm going to also link to you something called a cover letter builder. And it's going to go through and ask you several questions. And it will build a cover letter for you. If you're doing an entry level position, I would say you could probably get by with that. And so you have access to that. But also know that when you get into a job that's closer to what you're looking for, you're going to want to do a more specific cover letter. And so it's good to sort of have this information. Okay. Um, so just like with the resume, Google Docs and Word both have cover letter builders. So they already have things formatted for you and already have things set up. So one of the formats may look like this. You want to make sure that your contact information is very clear and very obviously your contact information. You want to make sure it's at the top. You want to make sure that it's bold, it's clear. Don't put flowery writing that nobody can read, because if they can't read your writing, you're typing, they can't contact you. Okay. So, excuse me, this has basic stuff here, but it has your name, your email address. Remember to change that email address to something more professional, your phone number, and then your physical address. Okay. Are they going to use your physical address? Probably not. But if you accidentally apply for a job in Texas and you didn't mean to, and they see that you're from Kentucky, they're probably going to say, "Hey, did you mean to apply for this job?" And if you're like, "Yes, I'm planning on moving," then okay. But if not, then they can catch those things too. So, I mean, hopefully you're paying attention and not doing that, but it happens. Okay. So you put your contact information at the top because it's an important part. Then you have to figure out their contact information. This will require some research on your part. If you apply through a job or through a website like Indeed or Monster.com, almost always there'll be a contact person. You may have to sort of look for it, but there'll always be a contact person. What it tells the hiring manager, if you can find their information, is that you've actually looked into the company a little bit. you've actually paid attention to um, what they do, who is involved, who is there, all that stuff. If you just send them something that doesn't have this information, they're going to assume that it's just another generic cover letter that you've just kind of thrown out there. And so the more that you can information that you can get about who they are, um, where the company's location is, all that stuff, that's the better off you're going to be. Okay. So that all goes at the top there. And this is what the letter looks like essentially. So you kind of can see how this goes. Um, so you always have your salutation or whatever, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But you basically, in your salutation, in your introduction, you want to tell them what you're applying for, and then any relevant experience that you have, anything that you, and if you don't have any relevant experience, then tell why you want to do this job. Your body paragraph is really like what you've done so far, your accomplishments, your skills, things like that. The last paragraph is sort of like, um, uh, I don't want to put it, um, your opportunity to sort of sell them on yourself. And when you sell them on yourself, tell them, I'm really looking forward to an interview with you and talking to you. I think that, um, I can work around my schedule, can work at any time that's convenient for you, but like, don't ever say like, will you please hire me? You want to say something that's more of a statement, like, I look forward to hearing from you, or I'm excited for this opportunity. Something that makes you sound like you're very eager and you are willing to pursue this position. Okay. And then obviously you always sign off on a letter. If you're doing a handwritten letter, you have to bring a physical copy, and that's fine. You typically won't, but if you have to bring in a physical copy of your cover letter, always sign it. Sign your name. Okay. Um, and then print your name underneath it. So underneath here is going to give you some more information. It's also going to talk about not giving your ridiculous clown email, but your professional email. Talking to you a little bit more specifically about things that you can do. One thing to remember. So when you are applying for a job, it is important that you always put the person's name. Please don't put dear sir or ma'am. Please don't put to whom it may concern. The more information that you can get, the better. If you don't know the information of that person, you can say dear marketing department or dear hiring manager. Okay. This one says dear company name recruiter. So any of those things will work, but you don't ever want to say to whom it may concern or dear sir or ma'am. Very impersonal. It doesn't really, it's kind of just like blah. Okay. Um, so this is going to give you some hooks that you can look at, some openings that you can do. Um, some of the things are going to be useful to you. Some of the things are not going to be useful to you. So the thing that I think is most helpful about this is that you can go to this in here. So you're going to be an entry level candidate, even if you already worked one other place, still probably entry level. So you click on the skip to writing tips relevant to you. It takes you on down to this. And so maybe you haven't had a lot of work experience. That's okay, because they understand that, especially if you're applying for a quote unquote entry level job. And so like I've asked you to do, pull out your academic achievements, pull out your extracurricular activities, goals that you've set for yourself that are relevant to the job. If your goal is to beat Fortnite in 2 days or whatever, I don't even know if that's a possibility, but if that's your goal. Don't put that in your job unless you're like applying to be a EA Sports person or something. It's probably not even sport. Whatever. Don't put those in there unless they're relevant. Okay. So there's some examples here that you can use, and then make sure you always ask for an interview at the end, essentially, but don't ask outright. All right. So a lot of things there. I do want you guys, whenever you turn in your cover letter, to make sure that you are going through it. Just make sure that your contact information is correct. Make sure things are spelled correctly. If you see any squiggly lines under anything, check it, see what's going on with it. Maybe your name gets a squiggly line always. So, if that's the case, then it's okay. But you do want to make sure that you've at least given it a once over. It just makes things a lot easier. It makes things look a lot better. And if you send it to me, obviously I'm going to point it out to you because I want you to be able to take this resume and this cover letter and take it with you. But if you send it to me, you're gonna have to redo the whole thing and fix everything. Who wants to do that? So look through it, fix it yourself. I'm not always going to be able to look over your cover letter. I mean, I probably would if you asked me, but you're probably not going to always want to ask me. So this is a good way for you to get practice in being able to apply for a job. Okay. So, and hopefully you could take this cover letter and this resume and use it to actually apply for a job, like real world, take it out and apply for something. And we probably will even have a day where you can try to apply for a job if you're looking for one. So I'm also going to link a cover letter builder. And basically, all that's going to do is ask you some questions, walk you through some things, and it will help you to build your cover letter. If you feel like you're not very confident in your ability to do that, then you can use the build your cover letter. I'm okay with that. Know that it's not going to always work. Okay. There will be times when the build your cover letter thing is not going to be effective for you, and that's okay. But this is a good starting point. So if you are struggling with cover letters, you don't really know where to start, this is a place where you can start with it. Use it if you need to. Okay. If you don't want to use the cover letter builder, then go to Docs, just like you did with the other thing, with the resume, and you can look under the templates and it'll be there. I think there's anything else I need to tell you. I don't think so. So, take the time after you finish your resume to go through this website, read back through it, look back through it, and work on building a cover letter. And you will turn in your cover letter to me on this assignment. Right? So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to let you go work on your cover letter. If you have any questions, you know me.